Thank you for tuning into Friday Night Live, Marriage Matters. It is a blessing to be able to celebrate Christian marriage, and tonight we plan to do just that. Let's learn together as we hear practical lessons from some of our married couples. Couples that have been married 2 years and others who have been married 30 plus years. It's going to be a great evening of Black love. Share this presentation with someone else and let them know that marriage matters.
When I look back and I think about how I knew that you were the one for me, that you were going to be my husband, it's crazy, you know? I think about our first date and how you were, and I just knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that you were the one.
So when you say crazy, and what do you mean by crazy, and how did you know that I was the one? How did you know?
Because the date was so different from any of those that I have been on. I had recently gotten out of a long relationship and entered the dating field, and had been on several dates, but none of them were like the date that I had with you. I mean, from the very beginning of the date, everything was just so perfect. I thought that you were such a gentleman.
Right.
You know, your conversation was real and authentic. Everything just seemed genuine. You know, even the look in your eyes, I could feel the love. And then for us to tell each other that we loved each other on our very first date.
On the first date,
Yeah,
yes.
that's just crazy.
Yeah.
You know?
It was easy. It felt right. The way the situation was and the moment at the time and all, everything pretty much lined up.
Yeah, it really did. Even the cows mooing in the back, because remember it was during rodeo time. And we had the full moon, and we were looking at the full moon like, wow, this is such a beautiful, perfect night. Yeah.
And the cows moved.
All of a sudden, we were just be moo. That was funny. We were right by the Astrodome during the rodeo time. That was funny.
Yeah.
Melanie and I have known each other for most of our lives. We're both from Shreveport, Louisiana, and we actually first met in elementary school. And Melanie will actually tell you, if you will listen, that she's had a crush on me since the 4th grade. So we've known each other, we became friends. We both left Shreveport, we went to college, different colleges. And after we graduated from college, we returned to Shreveport. Our paths crossed once again. We started hanging out. We found out that we had some things in common. We were extremely competitive. Both of us were extremely competitive. I was an athlete. She was very competitive just by nature. And so we started hanging out, and pretty soon the friendship actually turned into dating. And we did a lot of things together. I remember I had a conference to attend in San Francisco, and I decided to go a few days early. And I invited Melanie to come along with me to San Francisco. She had never been to San Francisco. We went up to Tahoe. We had a really amazing time. And it was during that trip to San Francisco that I actually asked her to marry me. And she said,
yes, put a ring on it.
So we were married in June of 1988. I was 29, Melanie was 28. And shortly after that, we got married. We said that we were gonna spend the first year or two kind of getting to know each other as husband and wife. And then maybe a couple of years down the road, we would start talking about starting a family.
Hi, we're the Clevelands. I'm Dominique.
And I'm Marquise. We met back in college at Texas A&M University, but we didn't start dating probably until about 4 or 5 years after college. We ended up meeting at a mutual friend's party here in Houston. The rumor is she was checking me out.
Lies.
She denies it, but and ever since then we've been with each other ever since then.
Our first date was actually here in Houston at City Center, where he's asked me to meet him at Yard House for dinner to allow us just to have time to talk and get to know each other. Little did I know that he was going to come with his A game. He made sure he had on all his Aggie championship rings from track and things to that nature, just trying to just be a showboat. But clearly he got my attention. And at the end of the night, I was actually parked closer, so I offered to drive him to his car, and then that's when he popped up with his big Jag, and that's when I was like, okay.
Pull out all the stops, you know. But it got her attention, and we've been married now for 2 years. Actually, this October it was 2 years.
Well, I think first of all, before we dive into this question, I think we kind of need to preface it by saying that, you know, we were together almost 10 years before we got married. So I guess the level of expectation I had going into marriage was pretty much, you know, all figured out before we actually got married. I went to school, you went to school, we dated in high school sweethearts. And so I think we got a chance to know each other and kind of figure out what our expectations were going into marriage, even before we got married. Right. But if I had to answer the question, I would say that I had some basic overall level of expectations. I wanted commitment and honesty from a wife that I was going to marry. I wanted to have kids. I wanted to you know, live life together, enjoy. I wanted to have a certain level of understanding is the biggest thing for me. Just making sure that, you know, that you understood I'm a musician. I do, you know, I play gigs at night. You know, I may go out 10 o'clock at night to do a gig. I may come home 2 o'clock in the morning. I got to mix and mingle with all my fans after the show. You know what I'm saying? So it was big for me, for you understanding that going into marriage. That was my expectation. I was going to have somebody at home that was understanding of my lifestyle, my career, and the things we were trying to do and grow. And somebody just have goals with, and just kind of go forward in life with. So that was kind of my basic expectation, I guess, in marriage. But
And my basic expectations were, and still is, a family man, someone that's going to be faithful to me, love me for me.
Yes. I can do
that. Church going.
Mm-hmm. That's me.
God fearing.
Yep, that's me. What else? It's got to be something else.
Yeah.
I mean, so like those were your basic expectations,
right?
Is that you wanted, you know, you had a certain vision in your head how you wanted, how you wanted to live your life with your husband under one household. What about us building a house together and building a dream? I mean, we had expectations. I think both had expectations of that.
Right.
Getting a house. Yeah.
We did.
Yeah.
And we do.
Yeah.
The kids.
Okay, let me share something important with everybody, especially you ladies. You got a good husband, you know, you think he's a good husband, and he's, you know, he's supporting the home, you know, he's working hard, he's doing the things that make you feel like a queen. And you know what you should do? Give him respect. Show him some respect, show him respectful affirmation. I think those are good words. That's something that's just going to motivate him to continue to try to treat you right and to do the things that he's supposed to do, of course, biblically, and, you know, to make you know that you are the queen, you know, that you were made to be. So I think that that's important because by nature, you know, we men, we're providers, we're protectors, and we just think that when we know that our wives appreciate it, and you know that affirms us just to keep on going down that path, keep on strengthening our marriage and our relationship, and it's just gonna, you know, be a good thing. It's gonna be a positive effect on the relationship, on the bond, and on the marriage.
But how did you know that I was the one? Out of all those girls that you were dating, how did you know it was me?
Now, nobody said all that. Wow. Okay, well, the reality, when I put that connection together with the Ohio, and when I first came, and I got over to the Groovy, we had taken over the Groovy, myself and my cousin, and when I got there, it felt familiar, like I had been there, I had been there. And even the staff, after meeting everyone, thought they knew me. They thought that I had been there. They had met me, and that was really, really strange. So that kind of locked it in again of I was supposed to be in Houston, Texas. And then as we played and performed, different people in and out, and as different people were in and out. You all came anyway. You all came with your group and all, and kind of hung out for the luncheon time, the luncheon hours, and then you would end up coming back. Y'all would come back, happy hour, dinner, and all that. I said, yeah. And back then, you were even trying not to even speak much. Everybody else, when we would come over and visit tables and say hi, everybody else would speak, but you were kind of standoffish. So one day in looking out, we were up playing, and I heard something say, "Marry her." And I said, "What? Huh? Marry her?" So I heard that. So that night I told my drummer, I told Skip, I said, I'm going to marry her. And of course, Skip was, "What? Oh no, what are you talking about?"
He didn't want to give up that musician life, huh?
Life in the fast lane, but it was time for a change. So anyway, you actually started working there at the Groovy for a short time. And that's when I got to know you and see you a little bit. And really, your heart was revealed to me. I could see you were special. You really cared for people. You just had a caring heart. And that's what kind of locked it in when I said, yeah, I guess absolutely she is the one. So as I said, I knew way before you did. And finally we asked you to go out, and we finally went out on our first date, and as you said, told each other we loved each other on that night. But as I said, it was easy for me because it all kind of lined up. I could feel it, and it was all just right there. It was a special situation with a special person. I had found you.
Well, that's crazy because I didn't know all of that. But, I mean, it must have been something there because, like I said, to tell somebody on the first date, I love you, that was totally out of my character. I mean, I had to get to know a person before I even thought maybe I was in love. So to say I love you on the first date, again, it's just crazy to me, But like unique. I said, you really did sweep me off my feet. You were just the perfect gentleman, and it was just amazing. And like I said, the love in your eyes, I could feel it. It was just, I don't know. And then
could you feel it?
I felt it, baby. I felt it.
Respect is so important. Because if you're in a relationship, you're in a marriage, and you don't feel respected, you're not going to want to be in it. And actually, you can almost lose yourself in the marriage if you don't feel you're respected, because you can't be yourself. And if you can't be yourself, then you're trying to be someone else. So while I do agree with respect, because everybody wants to be respected, for me, I would have to say love first, for me. Because I think if a person really loves you deep down in their heart, then everything else just comes natural. The respect automatically comes, because the feeling in your heart will drive your emotions and drive your actions. Love with not just words and speech, but love in truth and love in your actions. And I think everything else will come from the love. You would want.
And now thinking about our biggest challenges today, we've only been married 2 years, but I think one thing we can definitely say has been managing our differences. Where on one hand, I'm more forgiving.
Too forgiving.
But on the other hand,
I like to consider myself assertive. Maybe hold grudges here and there. Yeah. No biggie.
So just learning how to manage those differences has definitely been, a challenge. But we've been managing through it, and I think we're really grateful and thankful for the marriage ministry.
Because we're not alone, I guess. We're figuring out that this is normal, and we're looking forward to the journey.
Yes, ma'am. And we're our church. We love our church.
Yay!
Hello, we are JW and Margaret Harper, and we've been married for 9 years. The most difficult time during the time that we've been married was on January the 8th, 2018. That was the date that I had thyroid cancer surgery. And it was also the date that Jay lost his son.
And which was a very, very life-changing thing that happened. And to let you know just a little bit about that is that I had already lost a son earlier, several years earlier. Then on the day of the surgery, once my wife was put into a room, and we had gone through that long period of operation, but the doctor said everything was good, and so we got settled in, and then my phone rang, and I just knew right away that I just felt something was wrong. And sure enough, it was. A stranger came on and asked who I was, and I identified, yes, and they said, well, your son has been shot and killed. And, of course, my knees just buckled out. It's something you never want to occur, to happen to your child. You never imagine that your child is gone. But thanks be to God, I had my wife, and even in her time that she was laying there, and I could feel that I had her, that she was with me, and she'd suffered just like I had.
Shortly after we got married, we found out that I wasn't going to be able to have children. And that was devastating news to both of us. Matter of fact, it was so devastating that I told Cedric I would give him a divorce. I would allow him to divorce me. And you see how he's shaking his head. That didn't happen.
I told her that divorce was not an option. I told her that with God's help and prayer, we would figure this thing out together.
So slowly, after going to 4 more doctors, all of them saying the same thing. The last one sent us to Houston, and the doctor said, okay, we're going to do this surgery. We're going to get you fixed up. They did the surgery. I went for the post-op. When I went for the post-op, he said, you need to start trying to have children right away. We did. We started trying to have children. Within a month after that post-op, we were pregnant. We announced it in December to the family that we were pregnant. That was wonderful news to everybody. Everybody was over the moon with that knowledge. But this is going to be changing our whole dynamic very quickly. But with the help of our parents, his parents, my parents, both live in Shreveport. We were having the first grandson on either side. Everybody was just
Super excited.
Super excited.
Super excited.
But even during that time, because of what I was going through with my recovery, there were times when I could not even speak above a whisper. And there were days that I was actually gasping for air. I could not even breathe. So I felt helpless. I knew that he was hurting. I knew that he was in pain. But I just felt like I could not be there for him the way that I really wanted to. There were days that I would just look at him to try to tell how he was doing, to try to see if he was okay. And I know that he was trying to stay strong for me. And that's one of the things that I love about him, is that he is so strong in his faith. It was one of the most important things that attracted me to him to begin with. Before we were even married, I knew he had a strong relationship with God. And as good looking as he is, that is still one of the most attractive things about my husband, is his relationship with God. That attracts me to him, because I know if he's accountable to God, then there's nothing more important to me than him being accountable to God. And because of his strength, we've been able to make it through that difficult time, because we're both praying people. He's praying, I'm praying. So that has helped us become closer together. We became closer together through all that we went through.
Yeah, because without the love of God and without the trust in Him, I don't know what I have. I don't know where I would be or where we would be. But when you have that foundation that is something you can fall back on, that you can call on the Lord whenever you need Him, well, I'm a living witness that the only thing that will see you through is the love of Christ, and trust and believe that He knows what He's doing. We just sometimes need to get out of the way of ourselves and let Him take over, because He has it.
Yes, He does. So even though that time was very difficult for us, our marriage is stronger, our faith is stronger. So we just thank God for that.
Yes, we do. And thank you so much for listening to us this morning. And we pray that whatever we said or whatever we shared with you, that it will some way be comforting to you in your life and in your marriage.
What is the hardest thing you have experienced in your marriage?
The hardest thing that we have experienced, I think for me, the first thing that comes to my mind, was recently just moving to Houston and moving in with my in-laws. There was your thought too?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was extremely hard. it didn't start out hard, but I thought it was going to be easier than what it was. But I think our initial arrangement was to be here for a year and leave, and it ended up being more like 17, 18 months or so. And then it was like once COVID hit, it just, yeah. I don't even, yeah, it was pretty hard. I know.
Why was it hard for you?
You gonna put me on the spot.
Why was it difficult?
It was difficult not having my own space, not being able to, I don't say I do what I want to do, but it's just different when you're staying with other adults. As adults, you're used to, we lived by ourselves for years, so we're used to running our household a certain way. And you have his parents who are used to being by themselves. They've been empty nesters for years. So just bringing it all together, I mean, even having little kids with the grandparents around, like,
right.
That's a whole nother level. Because, you know, they want to be grandparents, and grandparents usually spoil. And that's not really what toddlers need at that age. So we have to do a lot of reconstruction now that we moved into our own space. We have to do a lot of redirecting and breaking the bad spoiled habits. That's just a couple of things that I could think of.
A difficult time in our marriage where I felt like Torrance had my back was when we had our firstborn. That was the time that we just got married. I was working in DC for a little while. He was in Fort Worth, right. And I had come back home to have the baby, and you know, I just didn't think, you know, we were ready.
Right.
Yeah, so I decided once we had the baby, my parents came to help out for a week, and you know, immediately after they left, I kind of cried to my parents and said I wanted to come home. And so my dad sent my brother to pick us up, Kayla and I, yeah. And we went back home and stayed with them for a week. And the following weekend, Torrance came and was like, you know, I think you need to come home. And I was like, no, you're not gonna be able to help me with the baby. You don't know nothing about a baby, and I don't either. So, right. I just think he and I started talking, and he was like, I promise I'm gonna do good. You know, I'm gonna help you. And I was like, I can stay right here. But I talked to my dad, and I think my dad talked to him, and from there, you know, of course your parents is gonna say you don't have to go back if you don't want to, but I went back, and you know, it worked out. It really worked out.
Yeah, it just felt like it was time, and you know I had your back. We was gonna, you know, just gonna start our family. It's you and I and Caleb.
Yeah. And so that was the first time, because like I said, it wasn't the best situation. You know, I was living in DC, he was living in Fort Worth, and you know, that probably wasn't the best thing for us starting off with a marriage, being separated.
Yeah,
excited. Super excited.
Super excited.
So now we're this new young couple with a baby.
And because of that support system that we had, we were able to continue doing those things that we had enjoyed before we were married. We were able to continue to do those things that allowed us to continue to grow as a couple. And
playing our games and
all that good stuff. And you know, sometimes when, you know, we found that when romantic dinners and weekend getaways are replaced with dirty diapers and sleepless nights and cash flow issues, that can have a very detrimental effect on a marriage relationship. But again, we were able to overcome that because of the support system that we had with both of our parents.
We brought another one in, Madison. Same thing. The support system moved from Shreveport to Houston because we were now in Houston. That helped us out tremendously again. Now we're back. We're empty nesters. We're here together. We're trying to do all the things to keep it spicy.
So we just thank God for His amazing grace. He has allowed us to be married for 32 years, and
He tries to
we're
forget
just
how many years.
So excited and looking forward to continuing this journey of marriage. And we just give God the glory.
We give God the glory.
The boys, rather.
Now let's talk about this. I guess we can say, have we kept those expectations? Have I met all those expectations up to this point?
Yes, you have. And I met them.
Yes, of course. Now I think it's also important to say that.
So do you think anything has changed in between that time?
I think we've evolved. I think we've always maintained those expectations. I don't think we've gotten too far off track. But I think we've evolved over the years. You've seen me grow and do some different things than I probably hadn't done before. There was a time where I played music pretty much every week. And then maybe that trickled down over the years. Maybe I don't play as much anymore.
Right.
So,
that was a big issue. Like you said, after the fact, after you would finish playing, then the hanging out. Then I'm home with 2 boys.
Yeah. And so you didn't see that coming. That wasn't your expectation when we got married.
No, I did not. No, I did not. I thought gigs. I knew that was your gift, but I also thought that after you play, you pack up, you come home. Didn't realize, okay, well, sometimes that's a little networking involved, and that's how you get more gigs for the future, as well as getting to know some of the musicians, because some of the musicians you did not know.
Right.
They were called on the spot, so just getting to know them and kind of tweaking some things that could be better the next time. So you're right. No, I did not see that coming home, anywhere between 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
But
So I think that was a big thing, though. But I think overall, yeah, we've maintained the expectations that we had, that we set out going into the marriage.
Right. I agree.
And I think it's important that we've actually retweaked our expectations based on,
maybe
something, hadn't gone right.
Right. Or retweak them to what we've learned from the Macs and from the Johnsons. You have to do what's best for your household.
You have to do what's best for your household.
And that's what we've learned over the years, and that really truly sticks with us. We have to do what's best for our household.
And I've learned that sometimes expectations can be unreal.
Right.
We still got responsibilities around the house. I can't expect you to be available at my every call just because.
Right.
Just because, I need this right now. I need this right now.
Right.
We still got kids.
Oh, and if I may add, now that I'm constantly thinking about it, if I may add, going into the marriage, the expectation you work, I work. Well, didn't know that once Denham was born that I would be a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
But did go back to work because of the entrepreneurship and insurance, and then had Drew and was off again and been home for 9 years now. Enjoyed, but didn't see that coming.
Right.
But thank God for that, because I'm able to be home with the boys.
And because of that, I think some expectations on, maybe not necessarily comparing or looking at outside couples, we aren't able to travel as much.
Right.
I know at one point you wanted to do a lot of travel, and I'm kind of on the fence about that. But,
right.
But because of our situation, we can't really just can't just be out here traveling.
Right. It's not a necessity.
It's not a necessity.
Right.
Yeah,
and I'm okay with that.
Even though that may have been an expectation.
That, right.
Yeah, we're
and
fine.
You're okay with that too.
So we had to kind of change that. So that makes sense.
Right.
Looking at our relationship in the beginning, I was having to learn how to let you lead, knowing that that's for the design of the marriage, God's design. I know it was supposed to be letting you lead. and having to step back when I was ready to make a decision and move forward on something. I knew I had to wait on you to be on board.
I mean, there were times that, I mean, because of our communication or lack of communication, that there were some decisions made that I didn't agree with, and that maybe you thought I was on board with, for lack of discussion, that may have caused some difficult times in our relationship. Because I am a saver, and you do like to spend a little bit. So, but I've learned over the years, if it makes you happy, they say happy wife, happy life. So
remember that.
We have gotten a little bit better. I mean, I think in all things that we learn more than anything is our conversations go better when we pray about it first. And we don't do that as much as we should. But when we do involve God, and no matter how small the issue is, because small things can turn into some very large arguments over time. When God is involved, I think it goes a lot smoother.
Right. Well, that and also realizing to take the other person under consideration, that your ideas are good ideas as well. So yes, you know, I may like to spend money, but then I also realize that with you saving, you're helping balance out the family so that we're able to do stuff in due time. And so I know that means I can't do everything right when I want to, but if I talk to you about it and let you know, and you give you some time, and we can kind of get on the same page, and then it's even better because we're both enjoying it. So then I appreciate that, you know, it doesn't always start off where we're on the same page, but when we end up on the same page.
Hello, I am Melissa Stewart.
My name is Chris Stewart.
And we've been married for 10 years. We just made 10 years this month.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been together
since 2006. How many years is that?
I'm a math teacher. It's
14 years.
2014. It's been a little longer than that, but something along those lines. Statistics show that finances is one of the #1 reasons why married couples get divorced. So when we got engaged in 2009, Christmas Day. At that point, we both have degrees in electrical engineering from Prairie View A&M University. But at this time, Chris was no longer working in engineering field. He was delivering bread at this point in time, because he had been out of work for about a year
and a half. Mm-hmm.
But you know, he still got me a ring and proposed and such and things. And so we were moving forward with the wedding. And then February, right after I bought my wedding dress, I got laid off. Now, mind you, the bread business is a lot of work, but not necessarily a lot of money.
True.
And we had just bought this house a few months before, 6 months before I got laid off. And I was out of work for about 6 months as well. But we still pushed on with the wedding.
We did. You wanted to stop it at one point.
I just wanted to postpone it.
You wanted to postpone it.
Because I didn't know where money was coming.
Right.
And so the money I had saved up for the wedding, I was like, we might need to pay bills with that. But we kept pushing. And while it was difficult planning our wedding, like me being unemployed and him being underemployed, we still pushed through. And it was marriage counseling where things kind of started to turn around. Because you remember when we were in marriage counseling, and it was the whole pull the sex off the table.
I remember that.
It's like, okay, you know, we weren't living completely right before,
Mm-hmm.
but we made the commitment to pull sex off the table until we got married. And it was just like immediately
Stuff started
working out. I got like my first job interview that I had in probably 6 months, or close to, like right after we made that decision. And I ended up getting that job. And then like a month or so later, his resume came across my supervisor's desk, and I pretty much begged and pleaded to hire him as well, which they did.
They did.
And so we were finally like back on a playing field where we were both employed, like getting paid our worth, or at least paid for our knowledge and our degree. So that worked out for a while. And then I went through a roller coaster of getting laid off.
Another time in our relationship over the years, because I mean, we've been married now 19 years, but we dated since 1993. I mean, the real
92.
November of 92. Okay. The toughest time was the night we got the phone call that your uncle had passed away, and you had to go down by yourself because the children were asleep. And so I had to stay back and be with them, but you had to go down by yourself, and I was really worried about you, and I had to call, the rest of the family to let them know. I mean, the first thing we did, though, we prayed before you left, and I was really impressed, and I was worried about you, really, and how, because I know you, means a lot still, means a lot. And that, I mean, back in 94, I got the phone call that my grandfather had passed away, but I was 22 years old, you kind of just roll with it at that time, but that was the first time really where you get a call in the middle of the night and you got to do something, that I actually, just watch how God worked in you to help us get through that situation.
And definitely appreciate you being there. And you don't realize until you're going through difficult times, that person that you can lean on. And you have to have that moment to realize that, you think everything is good until it's not good.
Right.
And then, you have that person that's your backbone, and over time, like you said, you realize that, okay, I can do this.
Right.
Even though you always gonna fuss here and there over something, but when the bottom line comes, you know that, okay, this person got my back.
Right.
They gonna, even though we may not think alike all the time.
And that's the beauty of it. I mean, we're a testament that God can take two totally different people and have them become one flesh.
Totally
different people.
People.
Yeah. But, as we learn to celebrate each other's differences, I think the more enjoyment we will get out of our relationship and out of life. I mean, this far, God has brought us this far, so we just leaning on Him.
Well, and I think knowing too, I still remember, if you remember, when we sat down in Pastor's office and doing the deposit for the church, and we said, okay, this is it. Ain't no turning back.
And those words, no, you didn't say no turning back. Divorce is not an option. Was actually the words that, and I think in the world where it teaches you to be selfish, the day you said that, oftentimes when you get mad, because we got angry and you think about just leaving and, oh man, y'all can have this.
Yeah.
Divorce is not an option has really, really been stamped in my mind. And when you go from that perspective, then you start trying to work through the solutions. If you always start with that thought, divorce is not an option. Then, hey, and that has gotten me through some difficult moments where, divorce is not an option. remodeling the house, you wanted to do, and that was a pretty penny. And I was like, man, no, we cannot spend all of this money on this, but divorce is not an option. Kids acting up, this is just too much. Divorce is not an option. So those words that you said that day in pastor's office, it's really left a stamp on me and helped me through some times like, hey, divorce is not an option.
The time that I really can say that probably has caused a lot of friction in our marriage was that he has this friend that is like his best friend. And the time that, every time we got together with this couple, it's always what his wife wanted to do. It was never, and I was just expected to go along with whatever was decided. And it was this one particular time where he was like, Kim doesn't want to do that, and we're going to do something else. And they came along, but it was just the fact that he stood up to his best friend. And, everyone probably has a best friend that causes a little friction in the marriage. Why you give more attention to that person. And I just felt like, you know what, he really does care about me. Like, I'm number one. And ever since then, it's like we talk about it, what we're going to do. And we have a game plan before we get there.
Right.
Yeah.
So, thank you, baby. So a time in our lives that was difficult for me, when I felt like Kim actually had my back, is we moved from Baton Rouge to Fort Worth, and Kim had already landed a job. That was the reason for the move. And I think I stayed back a couple more weeks to finish working. And once I got to Fort Worth, of course I didn't have a job, so I was time for me to go job hunting and hit the pavement. So I landed a job within like 2 weeks. And after that, I overheard Kim talking to her mother.
So you listened to my conversation?
Yeah, I was eavesdropping. He's kind of eavesdropping. But I overheard you telling your mother that he's here and he's found a job already in 2 weeks. And that just kind of, I don't know, that just kind of made me feel proud that knowing that she had my back, and she was kind of, telling my mother that to make it official, like, it's us, he found a job and this is what we're gonna do. And I just, I don't know, that just kind of sticks out in my head. She always had my back. I don't take that for granted. Kim's a very nurturing person. She navigates my life and our life and just makes things easier for me. I love her. Oh, you do great. You do an awesome job.
Oh, you're so sweet. You don't make me cry.
So, I love her for that. But that was the most difficult thing I could think of that I felt like she really had my back, and it was at the beginning of our relationship, and I don't know, no turning back. She's been right there for me.
Yeah, we have our ups and downs, but through it all, I think, we try to push through it. That's how I feel. We push through.
It seems like I was getting laid off
every other year.
Something like that. It was quite frequently for different reasons. But then after we had our daughter, I went back to work after Thanksgiving. And by New Year's Eve, I got laid off again. And I looked at Chris and I was like, I'm done.
I knew she was done. She had talked about being done previously.
Yeah.
Numerous times. And I think that final layoff,
just put the nail in the coffin.
Put the nail in the coffin.
I was over it. And I switched careers completely. But first I was just home. We had a newborn.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just home with her for a good while. Then I started substitute teaching, and then I went into teaching, which was a drastic hit to our finances.
Yeah, but at that time you had been unemployed for a year or more. So we had already suffered through one income. So even though you started teaching and you were making less than what you were making in engineering, it was a bump to what we had at the time.
It didn't feel like that to me.
That's how I looked at it.
I guess because I was like, where's the rest of my check? But Chris was really supportive during that career change. I pretty much cut my salary in half, but like doubled my hours all of a sudden. And, you know, things around the house, I wasn't doing much. The career change kind of changed the dynamic around the house. It also changed our financial situation and what we were used to being able to kind of do and move, we weren't able to do anymore. So fast forward a couple years, I'm in my third year of teaching at this point, and this is last year, 2019. And I get a phone call from Chris one day. Not uncommon, but it's like the middle of the day and I can hear wind blowing in the background. I'm like, what are you doing? Where are you going? And he's like,
I got laid off.
He had been working at that job for 9 years. He started working at that job 2 weeks before we got married.
2 weeks before we got married.
And at this point, it's like a week before our 9th anniversary. And they laid him off. And that was a blow because my teacher salary is not enough to sustain us. Well, I felt like it wasn't enough.
We thought that it was not.
Yeah. What I will say is it's been over a year now.
It has.
And everything is still paid. Our kids are still alive. We can feed them. We've cut back on a lot of things, and you know, we've made it work.
Well, it's funny that our thing is the same. It's about there, and you know, for me it's different. That's why I asked her what was hard about it, because for me what was hard was different. What was hard for me was after we got to that 17, 18 month period, and after we said it was just going to be a year, you know, I wanted to give my wife, you know, her house. I wanted to get her some space. She was ready to go. And, you know, we appreciate my parents and the blessing that they were to us, and no doubt. But at the end of the day, we wanted our own space again. We came in with a goal, and I was like, I'm going to get a house. We're going to get a home. We're going to move my family into their, you know, our first house. And so that was the goal. And it just seemed like it wasn't happening how we wanted it to happen. We were hitting different roadblocks, or it was going slower than we expected. Like we were on our way, but sometimes we were moving at a snail's pace. And I was like, no, I'm ready to go.
If he would have listened to me, we would have started the process earlier.
Whatever, but even still, it was just things past, even up what we would have started early, that once we got past that, it was other things that blocked it, other things that slowed it down. So it was just that it was frustrating place, because as a husband, what you want to do is provide and make moves for your family and get them in the right spot. And she was ready to go. She was ready to have her own space. And as a husband, when you're hearing what your wife wants, you want to do that. Like you want to go in and make it happen. And some of the things were outside of my control. Like I couldn't make those things move and happen any faster. And so since I couldn't make them move or happen any faster, it was very frustrating as a man, frustrating as a husband, because, you know, I'm supposed to give my wife what she needs, and I can't do it, and I'm not in control of making it happen any faster. And to where we both had to throw our hands up and say, God, do something. Make it happen. You know what we've been praying about. You know the desires of our heart. You know what we've been asking you to do. We need you to move, because right now we are at our limit on, you know, being there.
Breakdown.
Yep.
Multiple times.
She told me she had a couple breakdowns, like, I can't do it no more. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm calling my realtor every day trying to make it happen. I'm trying to make things move. And anything I did didn't work. And then it wasn't until we just said, God, do it, and stood still. And we stood still, you know, and with that Donnie McClurkin, after you done all you can, you just stand. Literally, we just stayed. We just stood there, and God worked it out. And, you know, we've almost been a month in our new home. And so that was the hardest thing, but we overcame it. We're in our new home. We're happy. And so, you know, that was the hardest thing, but God. Love
you, baby.
Love you too.
Well, good evening, family. I pray that you had a tremendous time listening to our vignettes and even the testimonies that were given on our Marriage Matters series, our family night. I had a tremendous time listening to some of the stories and even the testimonials, and even listening to how some couples were able to navigate some of the obstacles that sometimes is presented in marriage. As we continue to glean from some of the things that we've heard, I want to challenge you with at least 3 or 4 key points that I believe that we can glean from what we've heard tonight. One of the things that I heard succinctly and often throughout some of the vignettes and the testimonies was this idea of communication. And I want to challenge you, friends, to communicate in marriage. It is important, it is essential that in your marriage that you learn how to communicate often and as many times as possible. There's no such thing as over communication. And so I want to challenge you that as you continue to develop your marriage, as you continue to navigate the obstacles and the challenges that marriage brings, I want to challenge you to maintain your communication no matter what. The other thing is that I want you to manage this whole idea of gratitude. That's right, gratitude. In marriage, there must be a sense of gratitude, thankfulness for the person that God has given you. When was the last time you told your spouse that you were grateful, that you were thankful for the relationship and even being able to be in a marital relationship with them? When was the last time you looked at your spouse and just simply said, I thank God for you? Here's another one that I think that we can glean tonight, and that is this idea of making time for each other, making time for each other. With all that's going on, transitioning from waking up in the morning, driving to work, navigating work 8 to 10 hours a day, and then coming home, cooking, taking care of children, and doing all of the things and the monotony of day-to-day activity, those challenges sometimes cause us not to have the necessary time that we need as a couple. And so I want to challenge you to not allow life to put you in a position where you spend no time with your spouse. You ought to be able to niche out a portion of your day, every day, out of 24 hours. You ought to be able to niche out a time for you and your spouse so that you guys can spend what I call quality time, whether that's bedroom talk, whether that's actually watching a movie together, whether that's sharing about each other's day. There ought to be a time, there ought to be a season in each day that you and your spouse spend what I call quality time. And then the other thing that I want to share is plan some personal time. With all that's going on in the pandemic and that we're currently living in, and even the times that we live, it's pretty hard to niche out some personal time. But I do believe that as a couple, for you guys to be successful, for you guys to be able to manage the relationship, even in the life that we live, you need some personal one-on-one time with self, which means that even as you spend time with your spouse, you need to niche out some time that you spend with yourself. Which means that whether you're going, for ladies, you're going to the beauty salon, whether you're going to get your nails done or a pedicure, whether you're spending quality time walking through the mall, whatever that looks like, you need to spend quality time. Gentlemen, whether you're going into your favorite boat and fishing by yourself, whether you're jogging, whether you're riding your bike, whether you're working out, there needs to be a hobby of some sort. There needs to be a time that you're spending time by yourself. And then the other thing that I believe is important that we can also glean from tonight's segment is this idea of understanding that it's okay to disagree. Let me say that one more time because somebody's looking at me. It's okay to disagree. You can disagree and not part ways. And one of the challenges in relationship is learning how to disagree and not disengage. And so many times in relationships, we disagree, and because we disagree, we disengage. But it's okay to have a different opinion. It's okay to have a differing view. And it's okay that your views don't match. And that's what makes each and every one of you unique in your relationship. But learn how to respect the other person enough to say, even though I don't agree with you, I respect your opinion. And I believe that through some of the testimonials tonight, we heard how so many couples had disagreements, but they were able to work through those disagreements and stay together. And so to be relevant in this time in which we live, it's important to know that in my disagreement, I still love you, I still care about you, and I still believe in our marriage. And here's another one that I think is really important, and that is the idea of building trust. It's important in relationships to build trust. And one of the challenges in relationship is that even in times like these, where we can't trust what's going on in the White House, we can't trust what's going on in the House of Representatives, we can't even trust what's going on in the local news. I think it's important that spouses learn how to trust each other, how to value what the other person has said, and how to trust that whatever they're said is true. One of the challenges that I've found in relationship with the idea of trust and trustworthiness is that it's something that is earned. It is something that is earned. It is a repetitive movement of knowing that what you say, I can depend on and I can trust. And so for some couple who's listening to me tonight and you struggle in the area of trust, I want to challenge you to put together a series of opportunities where you show your spouse that you can be trustworthy. And I believe that trustworthiness is important. It is one of those things that is a foundational piece to every relationship. And then here's the last one that I want to give you. It is one that I think should be foundational for every relationship. That's right, foundational for every relationship. And I'm going to give it to you in two parts. And here it is. The first is make sure you learn how to forgive. That's right. If you're looking at me, look at your spouse and say, learn how to forgive. And I believe that is important in every relationship. Learn how to get over some things. And I think one of the things that challenges or becomes an obstacle in many relationships is that we have the spirit of holding on to things too long. And so many times we hold on to things for so long. Some of you have been holding on to things for 10 years, 5 years, 20 years, 30 years. You've been holding on to a wrong, and as a result of that, the relationship hasn't blossomed the way that God intended. So I want to challenge you, friend, to remember that Scripture calls us to this place of forgiveness. There has been a question that has been asked in the New Testament of Jesus, and that is, how many times should I forgive? And Jesus rhetorically, and sometimes some suggest sarcastically, says 70 times 70. Well, the idea is really not 70 times 70. The idea is more so to get the idea that a person must understand the importance of perpetual forgiveness. It is an idea that if you love the person and you care about them, you don't mind forgiving them and giving them a clean slate. And the only way, here's the part two, the only way that you can really forgive wholeheartedly is that you have to exhibit agape love. That's right. Let's say agape love. It is a selfless kind of love. It is what God calls each and every one of us to as it relates to how we treat our fellow man. So as you treat your spouse, love is kind, which means that you go out of your way to be kind. Love is patient, which means that you give your spouse an opportunity to grow. You give your spouse an opportunity to mature spiritually. Maybe there's a spiritual issue or a challenge with them being trustworthy, with them communicating, with them being dependable, with them having a sense of integrity and character. Maybe there are some challenges there. But because you love them, you forgive them and you give them the time to grow. And you nurture and foster and care for them in such a way that they realize that they don't have to do some of the things that they have done throughout the relationship to you and to others. And so we understand that love is patient. We understand that love is kind, but can I tell you one more? Love does not hold any record of wrongdoing. That's right. When Apostle Paul talks about in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, the great love chapter, he basically says to this Corinthian body of believers, he says, listen, love, real authentic love, holds no record of wrongdoing. So friends, I want to challenge you in your relationships right now. That's right. Quit keeping score. Come on, look at your spouse with loving eyes and say, listen, we're going to stop keeping score. That's right. It's not about who wins. It's about coming together for the mutual fulfillment for those of us who love God in the body of Christ. That's right. So that when individuals see us, they know that we spent some time with God. So friends, I pray that during this segment, during this time that we've shared in Family Matters, during this time that we've shared in this idea of marriage and the ministry of marriage, that you've gleaned something that you can hold on to. And I pray that in these keys that I've given you, that you hold on to these keys and you utilize these keys in your relationship. And I pray that as you grow, that God will continue to get the glory out of each and every one of your lives, and that when people see you, they'll know that you are a child of God. Listen, I thank you for sharing with us today. I thank you for listening to all of our testimonials. I thank you for listening to what so many had to say about some of the challenges that they were able to overcome. And I pray as you and your spouse are writing your own personal testimonies, when you and your spouse are still writing out what God is doing in your marriage, that when you testify, you'll be able to say that nobody did it but God. So listen, friends, I pray that you have a wonderful night and that you continue loving on each other and that you continue showing the love that Christ gives us on every single opportunity and experience in your relationship. And remember, marriage matters. Have a blessed night.